Hello, let's double check the YouTuber's working. Actually it seems to be half working. Okay, I think it's fine. I'm gonna have to bugger off for about 5 minutes, about 40 minutes into the stream. But apart from that, all good. Yeah, stream's working. I'm back in the groove, I think. I'm very curious how they're going to make this trial last long. Because it feels like we've already made the key connection. What I thought would have been the big twist is actually like the first objection. I thought the big twist was going to be that Scythe is involved, but we're literally just like, yeah, Scythe is involved, no big deal. The first objection. It's insane. So we just got through the jury. And, oh yeah, at the end of the stream I accidentally pressed the button.
Her waxwork of the despicable professor, used as a body double for the victim in this quite extraordinary case. I must say, it's extremely hard to believe the assertion could possibly be true. However, it would appear that it does at least warrant further investigation.
It's the waxwork of the professor that links Mr. Drebber and Dr. Scythe. And I'm convinced there's a special significance to that link.
I don't know what you're hoping to prove, lad. I really don't.
The truth, sir, by using evidence and testimony. If the court is to delve deeper into the alleged involvement of the waxwork in this case, then the prosecution calls for the owner of the model to be summoned as a witness.
The owner?
Madame Tuspels. I wasn't expecting that. I really thought that Lord Van Zykes would object to this whole line of inquiry.
Very well, I concur. Make arrangements for Madame Tuspels to appear as a witness with immediate effect.
Listen carefully, my learned friend. Oh, yes? You should know that you're on the brink of opening Pandora's box.
The court shall now adjourn for 45 minutes. During that time, the prosecution will summon a new witness and prepare for her taking the stand.
Madame Tuspels, yes. I shall see to it at once, my lord. Oh shit, that was a stupid place to end the stream last time. We just end the stream here. Bum, 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 bum. The Old Bailey Defendant's Antechamber.
Ah, the knight-errant himself!
Oh, you've been watching from the gallery, Mr. Sholmes?
I've been on the edge of my seat the entire time. Courtroom trials are fascinating affairs, as a spectator at least.
I'm glad you've been enjoying yourself. I have to ask. What on earth is going on? It makes no sense. What's this professor business all about? He doesn't look like any professor I've ever met before. Who even is he? Ah, of course. You were in Germany already 10 years ago.
Yes, the professor. When I discovered he was the one who had been abducted, a sense of foreboding stirred within me.
He? Why he in quotation marks?
But who knew that the monster would not come knocking at your door? My heartfelt sympathies. Ha 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 ha.
As it turns out, Lord Van Zykes is even more intimately tied to this case than any of us realized, isn't he? Yes, how true. His great friend from university in the dark.
And now a waxwork of the killer who took his esteemed brother's life makes an appearance too. I imagine even the shrewd Mr. Reaper failed to foresee that kick in the teeth. An extraordinary move on your part, my dear fellow, to throw that in front of the man.
You make it sound deliberate. I can't help feeling that this professor case is really very puzzling.
Oh, yes? In what particular manner?
Well, there's Mr. Drebber, Dr. Scythe, and Lord Van Zykes. It seems that everybody in the trial has a link to the case somehow. Yes, in fact I alone am not a member of the set. Though that leaves me as an empty set, all alone with no intersection to any other. Why are we... Is this where we've fallen to? Set theory jokes.
Excuse
me? Oh. Excuse me. The Dr. Scythe.
Ah, Dr. Courtney Scythe, nay Stevens. Good day to you.
Hello, Sholmes. That was very shrewd of you.
What in particular, pray?
You requested that 10-year-old autopsy report from Gregson, didn't you?
Why would you assume such a thing?
Because Gregson told me. To think it's been 10 years. 10 years in the laboratory, wielding my scalpel. I smell nothing but corpses and disinfectant. A policeman on the jury had a lot to say about you, as it happens, Dr. Scythe, and I've accused you of being complicit in what happened. I'm hoping that you'll take the stand and tell the truth about what really happened. That certainly won't be possible. Lord Van Zykes won't be summoning me as a witness. Lord Strongheart has forbidden it. Lord Strongheart? The Pandora's box you were warned about is the Professor case. But please don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get any information about it out of me. But attempting to hide from the truth, that's cowardice. I've always fought crime in the way that I see fit. I have no regrets, none at all. She's the Reaper. The real Reaper, like. And that's all I came here to say. So, good day to you. She mentioned it too. This Pandora's box. Whatever does it all mean?
There's really no cause for concern. I assure you, when the trial resumes, the meaning will become all too apparent, whether you'd like it to or not.
Huh?
Now then, I believe it's almost time. I must make my way back to the public gallery. The edge of my seat awaits.
I think maybe you're enjoying yourself a little too much.
Ah, yes, one word of warning before I go. If in the course of the trial this afternoon you perceive even a shadow of doubt about the truth, don't let it out of your sight. Pursue it like a dog with a bone.
The dog with the bone doesn't need to pursue anything. He already has the bone.
To the bitter end, you understand. Do not falter, whatever may come to pass.
All right, I understand. Thank you.
Good. I shall make myself scarce, then. I purchased a bar of caramel earlier, so I shall be gnawing on that as you gnaw away at the truth. My dear fellow.
What did that warning from Mr. Sholmes really mean, I wonder? Especially the bit about whatever may come to pass. It's time for the final chapter then. I'm determined to find the truth, no matter what.
In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby reconvene the proceedings of this court. Counsels for the defense and prosecution, are you ready and able to continue?
The prosecution is ready, my lord. Yes, my lord. The defense is also ready.
As the court is aware, the case under scrutiny began with a damaging incident at the Great Exhibition. Yet we now find ourselves embroiled in the details of a convicted felon who was sent to the gallows a decade ago. This trial is certainly defied all expectation.
As seems to be the fate of all trials in which this Nipponese is involved, my lord.
So then, let us begin our exploration of the defence's assertion that the waxwork was cardinally involved in this matter. Lord Banzai.
My lord.
Are we still awaiting the re-arrival of Madame Tuspells?
Not at all. She is in the antechamber as we speak, and ready to be summoned.
Very well, bring in the witness.
At once, my lord. Bailiff, show Madame Tuspells to the stand. Things are about to become a lot more intense. If Drebber is responsible, as I'm sure he is, it means he must have had an accomplice in Dr. Scythe. And what connects the pair of them is the waxwork. Yes, the model of the professor. That's the key to the link between these otherwise unrelated individuals. It's a tenuous link, admittedly, but at present, it's all we have to go on. State your name and occupation for the court, please. Here we go. Oh, fucking hell. This is gonna be so hard. Oh, fucking hell. Bien sûr. My name is Esmeralda, Madame Esmeralda Tuspells. I am an waxwork artisan, and the proprietress of Madame Tuspells' Museum of Waxwork. You will have to pardon me for working as I testify. My new exhibit must open very soon. Oh, so he finally gets a statue, does he? Now there are two of them in the world. Oh my, what expression is she carving onto that face? A number of days ago, a particular waxwork model was stolen from your museum. Can you confirm this? Oui, that is true. At first, we believed it had been kidnapped.
A waxwork model? Kidnapped?
Oh yes, oui, my lord. there was a demand for ransom money left behind by the culprit. However, according to what I have just been told outside the courtroom, that was not the true reason. I understand it was utilized as a substitute for the body of a murder victim.
At present, that is no more than conjecture proposed by the defense. This is the victim of the case in question, Mr. Odie Asman.
But of course, I know him very well. He's part of my odious personages exhibit. I detest to say what is evident, but Mr. Asman does not resemble the professor at all.
Yes, but perhaps their faces are very similar.
It really doesn't matter. Are you suggesting that we should shouldn't see now the demasked visage of the professor? I have here the key, but it is strictly forbidden to open the lock.
This is absurd.
Pardon?
I don't know what face you've carved onto your fancy figure beneath that mask. But clearly, it won't be that of the actual killer.
Indeed. The man's identity was never made public after all.
The trial took place in a closed court. The proceedings were strictly confidential. The condemned man was summarily executed. His identity remains a closely guarded national secret. There is no possible way for that a repository of tawdry exhibits could get its hands on that information.
Quel dommage. It would seem you are unaware of the two spells' principles.
What principles?
The family Two Spells has always prided itself on sculpting its models à la perfection. Every detail, including the visage, is fashioned with complete fidelity. Et voilà our principles. There is a well-known legend about the Two Spells waxworks from the time of the French Revolution.
Wait, is this actually a real thing? Is this seriously a real thing? Works. Madame Tussauds is a wax museum in London. History. Waxwork of Mary Tussauds, sculpting the waxwork. There's a waxwork of the waxwork maker waxing a waxwork. Marie Tussaud, born as Mary Groscholtz, Strasbourg. At the age of... She created her false wax sculpture in 1777. At age 17, she became She became art tutor to Madame Elizabeth, the sister of King Louis XVI of France. During the French Revolution, she was imprisoned for 3 months and awaiting execution, but was released after the intervention of an influential friend. During the Revolution, she made models of many prominent victims. You can see the tepid inspiration. You've got a killer killing elites. You've got somebody making waxworks of the victims, I guess. Yeah, I mean, it's... Baker Street? What? She was unable to return to France because of the Napoleonic Wars, so she travelled throughout Great Britain and Ireland, exhibiting her collection. From 1831, she took a series of short leases on the upper floor of Baker Street Bazaar.
I want to visit this place. Oh, there is a Chamber of Horrors as well. In January 2016, the statue of Adolf Hitler was removed from the Chamber of Horrors section in the London Museum in response to an open letter sent by the staff writer of the Jewish Journal of Greater Los Angeles, followed by significant support for its removal on social media. Of course. List of notable waxworks. There's no images though. This is interesting, like the whole the way that Shutakumi has sort of sprinkled in bit, you know, the inspiration has sprinkles of real people. I really like it.
A member of the Tuspel's family is said to have made a waxwork of the queen who was executed. Oh, that is true. It was a century ago now. I believe the queen's... What the fuck? Objection. I believe the queen's face was carved into in the minutes following her death, actually at the guillotine site. You are correct. The model is on display still today in the House of Horrors. We Tuspels will stop at nothing to obtain a faithful replica of our subjects.
Dear me, a somewhat disturbing tenacity of purpose.
It is the only way to obtain a truly lifelike representation of the subject. And it has been my family's secret for generations. Do you mean to say that beneath that mask, oui, the true visage of the killer is there?
This is ludicrous! It's out of the question!
Professor spread terror throughout Great Britain. As a result, the Madame Tuspel special exhibit remains extremely popular, even today. The killer, emerging from his own grave, it is a sight to behold. You should come.
I think, madame, it would be beneficial to hear your formal testimony on this matter. You will explain every detail of this macabre model, and your personal involvement in its creation.
With pleasure.
Check the stream. Seems good.
The special exhibit in the House of Horrors is based on a rumor that shocked society in London, an impression of the visage that was taken directly from the corpse, in accordance with the Tuspel's family principles. I enlisted the age of the gravedigger and created a mold for the head in the cemetery just before the interment.
I enlisted the aid of the gravedigger and created a mold. So, Enoch Drebber was a gravedigger?
I hid myself until he gave me a signal. I was there for a very long time that night. As dawn approached, I was very worried I could be discovered.
God, her voice has just gone down the toilet.
The gravedigger? The man sanctioned this?
Oui, I will do all that is necessary to achieve the true resemblance my family is celebrated for. Nobody else knew. Only the gravedigger. What harm did it do? Huh?
So you truly saw it? The face of that monster?
Naturally, I was aware at the time that his identity was a secret. But to spells would not be to spells if we did not insist on absolute fidelity to our sculptures.
I don't believe this.
I myself have seen the special exhibit at your museum, madame. I had a truly blood-curdling scene in which the murderer is emerging from his own grave.
The scene it depicts was the subject of many rumors in London 10 years ago. I have here a newspaper from the time. The special exhibit was based upon the picture in this article.
Odie Asman was the artist. How is this all linked, man? You've got Enoch Drebber, you've got Dr. Scythe, you've got Madame Tuspels, you've got the Professor themselves. Let's read the article. Man rises from the grave. Executed criminal returns in the dead of night at local cemetery. At Lowgate Cemetery, just behind the prison, on the night of that foul demon's execution, the newly somethinged professor forced off his grave cover as he clawed free of the earth. The young man who witnessed this scene was on the verge of raising a shriek when, in the next second, a gunshot rang out suddenly from behind. The bullet pierced the resurrected man's chest, whose breath then stilled. The youth then finally released the scream he'd been holding and ran for his life. The university student who experienced this shocking event is Mr. Enoch Drebber, a disciple of science at the University of London and a resident of its student dorms. Mad Sheep Rampage, an explained phenomenon, grips Oxfordshire region. Locals reported a most remarkable circumstance in which folded sheep were seized with a sudden fright and leapt from their away from field and pens, not even the blah 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 of the empire. Charles Darwin to receive Copley Medal. This year's recipient of the Royal Society's most prestigious award is Mr. Charles Darwin for his important contributions and researches in the field of geology, zoology, and botanical physiology. Mr. Darwin joins the ranks of such monumental figures such as somebody Rachel and Léon Foucault, who I've never heard of. The Great Stink. Parliament is finally to address the issue in the House. Oh my god, I know this story. I know this one. I can actually comment on this one. The Great Stink. So there was actually, like, in Parliament, they argued for a long time about the stink in London because of, people just... And that's how the sewer system came about. And it literally got, put off for ages, and I can't remember why. Because, the MPs had to put up with the stink themselves. Because they obviously lived there. After a great many years, Parliament has at long last resolved to relieve the citizens of London of the horrifying stench that carries in even the slightest breeze and lingers in the soils of every nostrils of every man and woman and child. A great sewer system is to be built underfoot that will divert fecal matter away from the river Yeah, that's I can't remember where I read about this or like heard about that. That's a real thing. Was the Bal Masqué to blame for the Great Blaze? The fire that engulfed the popular theatre continues to draw attention as reports that Her Majesty Queen Victoria herself visited the Royal Italian Opera to inspect the site and offer words of condolences. Wasn't Queen Victoria like old as fuck at this point? To inspect the site and offer words of condolences to the theatre's owner, Mr. Frederick Guy. The theatre had been under lease to a famed magician, John Henry Anderson, and there was some speculation that the blame for the fire lies squarely with him for his insistence on holding his Bal Masqué there. Could his magical tricks have played a trick on him, costing the city a great centre for the arts? The investigation into the true cause is expected to continue into next month, if not beyond, according to our sources. Krakatoa eruption. I'm gonna look at it. I'm looking up. Oh, it says Monday, June something. Wait, I can figure out what year the game takes place in at last. Krakatoa eruption history. 1883. It's a famous 1883 eruption. There's no way this game takes place in 1883. Also, it doesn't actually say the J. Oh, fuck. Wait, I can check. I can check the date. Oh my god, this is so sad that I'm doing this, but 24th of October, 11:53 a.m. Oh, okay. 24th of October, 11:53. Oh, okay, this is a newspaper from 10 years ago. Duh. Oh, idiot. So, okay. 10 years ago was 1883, so it's 1893-ish. 1893. Oh, yeah, I can't work out because this year, if this newspaper wasn't from 10 years ago, I could work out when the game took place, but I can't. Also, Queen Victoria would have been 10 years younger than I thought. Oh, and Naruhodo hasn't complained about the stink because the sewer is already here. Wow. Well, this special exhibit was based upon the picture in this article. It was the most detailed account of what happened as reported by the eyewitness who saw it. Man rises from the grave. It's too absurd for words. The public enjoy absurdity, monsieur. That is why I have reproduced the scene as carefully as possible in my museum. And it's a waxwork from that exhibit that was stolen some days before the incident at the Great Exhibition, wasn't it? Oh, that is correct. The professor you see before you here.
Most puzzling. Counsel for the defense proceed with the cross-examination.
This waxwork links Drebber to Dr. Scythe, and there has to be some reason for that, which hasn't yet come to light. But I'll find it. I'll get to the bottom of what really happened. I'll prove that Dr. Scythe and Drebber were in on this crime together. Got 8 minutes before I have to bugger off for a minute. Hold it! Hold it! And that rumor would be a 10-year-old tale now, but one that no Londoner would ever forget.
Ah, right. I know just what you're talking about, I think.
Of course, it couldn't be anything else. Yes, that destroyer will never disappear.
The tale of the condemned killer rising from the dead, that is the central attraction of my house of horrors. The rumor was whispered all over the city, and it was like this. It was on Lowgate Cemetery behind the prison, in the dead of night after the execution of the killer. The interred professor slid back the stone slab, covered his tomb, and emerged from his grave. A young man who witnessed this felt a scream welling up inside him, but an instant later, he heard an ear-splitting gunshot from over his shoulder. The bullet struck the emerging corpse, and he fell motionless once more. The scream finally found its way from the mouth of the young witness, who turned and ran for his life. The corpse climbed out of its own grave, and then somebody shot him. Who was it? Nobody knows, even today. But remember, it was just a rumor. Perhaps nothing more than a ghost story. The good people of London, they love stories like this. That is why in every newspaper, that is why it was in every newspaper across the capital. But was it just a story? Was it just a story? I mean, this is exactly the scene that can be seen today at your museum, isn't it? Oui, the special exhibit was modeled on that very illustration. For a while afterwards, the contents of that article were reproduced in every newspaper imaginable. God, it's truth. Flipping from that terrible French accent to Susato voice is so hard. Don't I have like a primer for the Susato voice? Judicial assistant. Madame, or might I say something? Please go ahead, mademoiselle. When something is described as a rumor, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's entirely made up. I believe that often, rumors contain elements of the truth. I see that people from the East can be just as astute as the people of Europe. Can we be sure, for instance, that the professor's execution was successful? It is not possible for the dead to come back to life. Sorry? 10 years ago, I was there in Lowgate Cemetery. After the criminal, known as the Professor, was killed by hanging, I took a wax impression of his visage from the corpse just before it was interred. So I can assure you, the man was dead. I see.
It would certainly appear that the condemned man suffered the intended fate.
An impression of the visage was taken directly from the corpse in accordance with the Tuspel's family principles.
1 minute. What the hell evidence is going to help us here? Shall we have this camera?
Hold it. Is that true of every waxwork in your museum then? It is, assuming the subject is dead, of course. Live subjects have to cooperate in a similar way. I have letters from imprisoned criminals all the time. I have letters from imprisoned criminals all the time, you know. What sort of letters? When my time comes, please make a waxwork of me. Comme ça? No! My museum is famous, monsieur. To be made into a waxwork is an honor, and for some criminals, a symbol of status, even.
Because nothing says hardened criminal better than wax.
And it is thanks to the one killer in particular that my museum has gained such popularity in London. I refer to the star of the special exhibit, of course, the Professor.
Whose form you claim to have captured by taking an impression from the actual corpse.
There are no exceptions of the principles of two spells. I enlisted the aid of the gravedigger. Create a mold for the head in the cemetery.
Hold it! Surely that's illegal, isn't it?
Statute of limitations.
It would seem that the proprietress of this repository of repository of novelties was blinded by monetary greed.
It had nothing to do with money. The man is a part of London's criminal history. That is why I had to sculpt him. To record this history. It is the raison d'etre of the Two Spells Museum.
If the man was convicted in a closed court and sent for immediate execution, then surely nobody but the members of the judiciary present know the killer's true identity.
I assure you, behind that mask is hidden the true face of the Professor.
Do you realize what you're saying? The Professor's identity is a national secret.
I understand. And now that the truth about the special exhibit has been revealed, it must perhaps close.
Of course it will. As will your entire museum if you don't tread very carefully, madam. Madame.
That could be another interesting chapter in the history of my family, I think, don't you?
So 10 years ago, on the night of the Professor's execution, you took a wax impression of his face from the corpse.
Oui, exactement.
Right. Hold it. You were there longer than you expected to be. I had some difficulties in capturing the subject's form correctly. As I removed the mask, the mouth of the cadaver fell open, and I had some problems with the chin. Dare I ask? The man had been dead for a short while already, you see. His muscles were relaxing, and consequently his chin would not align itself correctly. Oh dear, what a horrible thought. What are you... Okay, hopefully it should be all good now. Oh dear, what a horrible thought. Under normal circumstances, I would have an assistant with me. However, that night, I was alone, and as a consequence, I missed my preferred window of time. What do you mean? When I take the impression of the visage of a cadaver, I always wait until 3 hours after death. Why 3 hours? Is that amount of time significant? It is because of rigor mortis. A rigor mortis? It's the name given to a phenomenon that occurs in the recently deceased bodies. As a rule, 3 hours post-death, the muscles in the body begin to stiffen. By approximately 10 hours post-death, the entire body is completely rigid and inflexible. And then from that point on, the muscles slowly... She's going fucking French, I swear. Fucking hell. Judicial assistant. And then from that point on, the muscles slowly start to revert to their relaxed state. No way. The effect is often used to estimate the time of death when a body is discovered. No, that's fucking French, Alex. The effect is often used to estimate the time of death when a body is discovered. Well, that was an education, if a slightly scary one.
as the Mademoiselle says, rigor mortis commences 3 hours after death, and it starts in the jaw.
I see. So that's why you wait.
Before that time, if the mouth falls open, and the mouth falls open, and it is very difficult to do my work.
It's getting hard for me to do my work with all this talk of corpses. I wonder what about that information the court's just heard from Madame Tuspel's. The information about rigor mortis that you just shared with us. Would you mind including it in your formal testimony? I believe it could be significant, you see.
Of course, I do not mind at all. I can't help feeling that after this latest topic, the atmosphere in the courtroom has become extremely grave.
This is no time for jokes, Miss Usato.
Madame, kindly amend your testimony as discussed.
Bien sûr. Bien sûr. It took me a very long time because it was before the onset of rigor mortis.
What time did she actually do it? Midnight. So there's no way she did it at like 2 AM, right?
Hold it! Rigor mortis being the phenomenon you described, whereby the corpse becomes stiff after death. I think you said that it starts at the jaw about 3 hours post-death. Is that right? Oui, c'est ça. Of course, the exact duration depends a little on the season.
I didn't realize a waxwork artisan would be so well versed in the subject.
No. That is only elementary knowledge in the field of legal medicine.
Well, I had no idea about it. But maybe I won't admit to my ignorance about forensic science.
I could ask my father to give you a very simple primer if you like.
I think corpses should be your domain. I think corpses should be your domain. I'm not good with them.
Oh dear, I'll do my very best. As dawn approached, I was very worried that I could be discovered.
Now this makes no sense.
Hold it! You say that dawn was approaching? What was the time? What was the time of day then, approximately? Well, I could not say. But when I left the cemetery with my utensils and wax, the morning light was becoming visible.
The execution took place on 17th of June, which had the earliest sunrise of that year.
Oh yeah, it's the summer equinox. Right, is that what it's called? Summer solstice, I think.
Indeed it did. First light would have been around 4:40 in the morning.
That really is early.
The fact is, I had very little time, so I finished my work in a half hour.
Contradiction.
It was necessary to complete the impression and bury the body before daybreak, of course. If somebody had discovered me there, it would have been a catastrophe. So I had to hurry. Catastrophe. It would have been catastrophe.
Is it me? Or does Mr. Sholmes seem to be taking shape more quickly now, too?
You certainly appear to go to extraordinary lengths for your work, madame.
I wonder, is what she just said particularly significant?
Madame, those details about how long it took you to complete the sculpture and the early sunrise, could you include them in your testimony? I believe they may be significant. Of course, if you would like me to. You're quite right, Mr. Naruto. It is intriguing. A sunrise at 4 in the morning would be absolutely unimaginable at home, wouldn't it?
That's not quite what I meant by significant.
Kindly amend your formal testimony then, madame.
With pleasure, my lord.
These two statements contradict each other.
Hold it!
Did you have reason to believe that you might be discovered once the sun came up or something? I had paid the gravedigger money to keep my little secret, of course. But with the morning light, I knew that the warden from the prison would commence his patrol of the area. Didn't you just have paid off the warden too, then? I had already paid the gravedigger, as I said. You cannot buy the silence of everyone, or the secret is no longer a secret, huh?
The sunrise was at 4:40 AM that day, which means that it would have been around 4 when you began your sculpting work.
Oui, but that must be correct. That would be when the gravedigger gave me the signal to come out of hiding. So that's all I have to go on. What you're feeling, Mr. Naruhodo? For some reason, that side went along with Drebber's plan. Now, if that's really true, then the Professor is the only other thing we know of that links the pair of them. So I feel sure that the waxwork must be a clue to this mystery somehow. In that case, we must use this cross-examination to uncover exactly what it means. Otherwise, the jurors are sure to revert their leanings and the trial will be over. I agree, but interestingly, uncovering what the Professor has to do with all this means more to Lord Van Dykes than anyone. That's the impression I'm getting anyway. Yes, as do I. After all, he has a profound connection to the Professor as well.
Hold it! Hold it!
That's illegal, isn't it? Isn't that like a meme? Wait. Proof of his signature. I imagine that you can present it to either, but... So which thing does it contradict? It's this one. Objection! Madame Tuspels, I have here an autopsy report that was filed 10 years ago now. It confirms that the death of the professor following his execution at the gallows. And is that a problem? I believe it is, because your testimony and our particular detail in the report completely contradict one another. Quoi?
Are you going to explain yourself, my Nipponese friend?
According to her testimony, Madame Tuspels was creating her wax impression just before dawn, and at that time, rigor mortis had not yet set in. Am I correct so far, Madame? You are, yes. As I said, the stiffening of the jaw is the first sign of rigor mortis, 2 to 3 hours after death. But the man's chin was limp, so he cannot have been dead for a long time. But on the other hand, if you look at Dr. Syde's report, it quite clearly states the following. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight, 17th June.
No!
If the professor indeed died at midnight that day, then by the time you were sculpting his face, rigor mortis would have already set in. Oui, yes, you are right. The chin, it would have been completely stiff. In other words, this report is wrong.
Objection!
Objection. No coroner makes mistakes when recording the time of death. The very idea is absurd.
In that case, there's only one possible conclusion. The execution didn't actually take place at the stated time.
I'm impossible.
Order, Counsel, this is beyond folly. Not only do you indict the author of the report, Dr. Scythe, but you also implicate members of staff at Barclay Prison, where the execution took place.
By heck! Extraordinary.
Not in my day.
Objection. My learned friend appears to have overlooked one very crucial fact.
What fact?
The professor died that night, without question.
He did. Of course he did. I moved the man's limp jaw with my own hands. There was no objection. Yes, the professor died that night, but what if he didn't die at the gallows?
Didn't die at... Are you insane? What exactly are you suggesting did happen in that case?
It's almost impossible to believe, but it would explain the link between Dr. Scythe, the professor, and that one other person of interest. I have evidence that would explain exactly what I'm suggesting happened that night.
Counsel, present evidence at once. The evidence that allegedly explains what really happened on the night of the professor's execution.
It's just this, right? There's no other relevant evidence.
Take that!
Take that! What happened that night is written very plainly in this newspaper article. Executed criminal returns in the dead of night at local cemetery.
You're suggesting it was a corpse coming back from the dead now?
Well, if this article is to be believed, yes. The professor, assumed dead following his execution, emerged from his grave and was killed again.
Objection!
Objection. Don't be a fool. That's simply a rumor published by the gutter press.
Can you be certain of that?
Are you serious?
The point is, as the article says, there was a witness to what happened.
My word, yes indeed.
Mais oui,
The young man who stole into the cemetery by chance that night.
Objection!
Objection. Of course there was a witness. The story didn't write itself, but obviously the man made it all up.
$25, $29, $16? Okay then. Oh, I was going to check the reading the article. What time did this happen? On the night. Doesn't say what time. But you'd expect it to be like 2:30.
And in any case, this was 10 years ago now. There would surely be no hope of finding him.
Objection.
On the contrary, my lord, we all know this witness well.
What?
Are you suggesting, counsel, that you identified the person in question? You know who claims to have seen these utterly incredible events that place?
Yes, my lord. In fact, you could say that he's right here before my very eyes.
You will substantiate your latest claim now, then, counsel. Who is the alleged witness of this staggering scene at the cemetery 10 years ago?
Take that! The man in question is Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Drebber?
The previous witness?
The special exhibit in the House of Horrors that Madame Tuspel's Museum of Waxwork recreates that decade-old scene in great detail. The condemned criminal emerging from the grave, and beside the tomb, a young man with a lantern stumbling upon the terrifying sight. And that young man is a 10-year younger Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Order. Surely not, counsel.
Drebber was there? At Linlowgate Cemetery?
What is all this talk about Mr. Drebber? Is the name significant? Of course, Madame Tuspels doesn't know, does she? Yes, it's extremely significant, Madame. To your situation as well, in fact. What situation? The theft of the Professor Waxwork from your museum some days ago was perpetrated by the very same man. No! But that would mean...
Madame Tuspels. It would appear you know the name, Enoch Drebber.
Oui, yes, I know it. But from long ago in the past. What? Oh my!
Good gracious.
Explain yourself. Tell us everything you know.
Yes, yes, of course. Yes, of course. The story of the young man and the terrible sight he witnessed in the cemetery 10 years ago was published in every single newspaper in London and throughout Great Britain. However, in all of the articles, the witness was simply described as a certain young man. No details were published about his identity. His name was never revealed. Objection.
That is apart from in one newspaper.
Oh.
The Daily Circus. It is the paper from which comes the article I have already shown the court. You're saying that his full name was only publicized in that article?
Goodness me. Yes, there it is. The university student who experienced this shocking event is Mr. Enoch Drebber, a disciple of science at the University of London, and a resident of its student dorms.
Unbelievable! When I read the article, I went to meet with the man. His discovery of the condemned criminal coming back to life in the cemetery in the dead of night would make a perfect exhibit for my house of horrors, whether it was the truth or not.
I see. So you went to meet Mr. Drebber in order to scout the waxwork of the man, did you?
Exactly. He was studying science at the University of London in those days. He was just a poor student. I paid him £5 to model for the waxwork. And since that time, it has been in my museum to recreate the scene of terror from the cemetery.
So, 10 years ago, a young man appealed to the public about an extraordinary event he'd witnessed. A criminal who'd been put to death, re-emerging from his grave in the middle of the night. But the public treated his claim as nothing more than an amusing anecdote that was soon forgotten. 10 years later, the same man steals a waxwork model of the executed criminal, ostensibly to use as a body double for the victim in the case we're discussing here today, even though the waxwork's build is a poor match for the victim, and its face is obscured by a mask. So the question is, why would the man do such a thing? Which brings us to 3 days ago, when the birdcage crashed into the Crystal Tower. If the birdcage had in fact contained not the body of Mr. Asman, but the same waxwork, the coroner from Scotland Yard who investigated, Dr. Scythe, would have noticed immediately. And yet, she submitted this autopsy report for the victim, which the court has seen earlier. Why?
Because the waxwork was that of the professor. Is that what you're saying?
Dr. Scythe put her name to a document confirming the death of a condemned criminal who is still alive. A criminal whose apparent resurrection was witnessed by Mr. Drebber. But that misconduct was a deadly secret the coroner would do anything to protect. Which is precisely why Mr. Drebber used that particular waxwork as the body double.
Arr!
My lord, this court must summon Dr. Scythe to the stand. The defense is determined to find out exactly how the coroner and Mr. Drebber are connected.
Gah!
According to the missive I received this morning through the prosecutor's office, Dr. Scythe is unable to participate in these proceedings. Is that not the case?
She told us herself. She told us so herself, didn't she? Lord Van Zykes won't be summoning me as a witness. Lord Strongheart has forbidden it.
Lord Strongheart?
The Pandora's box you were warned about is the Professor case. But please don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get any information out of it from me. Any information about it out of me. But please don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get any information about it out of me. Something happened on the night of that killer's execution 10 years ago, and surely nobody would want to get to the bottom of that more than Lord Van Zykes.
The prosecution calls for the instructions in that missive to be scrapped.
But Lord Van Zykes, the missive was issued from the Lord Chief Justice's office.
Objection!
Objection. The assigned prosecutor has the final say on policy in any particular trial. In other words, me.
Yes!
Let Enoch Drebber and Dr. Scythe both take the stand together.
Order. Very well, I will uphold your request. Bailiff, send us a appeal with immediate effect, addressed to Dr. Scythe, the forensic investigation team. The woman is compelled to attend on Her Majesty's orders.
All right then. Enoch Drebber and Dr. Scythe. If they weren't colluding with one another, this crime could never have been committed. I'm just a stone throws away. I can feel it. The truth behind all of this is about to come out. Why is two spells like the best? It's just fucking winking in the profile. Like, come on. All of dude, this case is so fucking good. Every character is good.
Thank you for your attendance at such short notice, Dr. Scythe.
I'm disappointed in you, Lord Van Zykes. You've completely betrayed the agreed policy on both Scotland Yard... You've completely betrayed the agreed policy of both Scotland Yard and the prosecutor's office.
Betrayal is not in my nature, as long as the truth isn't compromised. If it is, if there's even a hint of wrongdoing, then no matter whom it concerns or disgruntles, I will pursue the matter to the bitter end, as would any prosecutor worth his salt.
Mr. Drebber, you took the victim's life by means of a machine that you constructed in your workshop. And Dr. Scythe, as the investigating coroner, you were the first on the scene to examine the victim's body. It is the belief of the defense that you collaborated with each other and were both complicit in this crime. And where's your evidence? At present, we have no definitive evidence, but we do have a very significant clue. What are you talking about? I'm talking, of course, about the waxwork. This model of the killer, known as the Professor, who was sentenced to death 10 years ago. You don't need to tell me. I witnessed the man's execution with my own eyes, and officially pronounced him dead. That remains to be seen. Is that so? According to newspaper reports from the time, on the night following his execution, the killer came back to life. Don't waste my time. And the sole witness to that mysterious event was you, Mr. Drebber, wasn't it? If what you saw in the graveyard that night 10 years ago wasn't some chilling fiction, but reality, it would make you privy to a very great secret of Dr. Scythe's. A secret so profound, compel the coroner to agree to collaborate in your evil scheme, in fact. Mr. Drebber, tell the court. Tell everyone the truth of what you saw that night in Lowgate Cemetery.
So he was the student who saw it.
You can see the resemblance, actually, can't you? With the man in Madame Tussauds, I mean.
Surely he's not going to claim that's really what he saw, especially not after all these years.
He was a research student from the University of London, was he?
A bit too clever for his own good, if you ask me.
What an interesting twist. When at the time, not one person would take me seriously. Yet now, here we are, 10 years later, and suddenly my story matters. And in a court of law, too. Very well, then. If everyone so wishes. Let's be frank. I'll tell you the whole truth of what happened that night, for what it's worth.
So, Mr. Drebber, your testimony, please, about the events of that night 10 years ago. You will tell the court exactly what you stumbled across in Lowgate Cemetery.
Yes, of course. As you wish. The hand thing is so weird, like just the... The reason I was in Lowgate Cemetery at all 10 years ago was for a spot of moonlighting, shall we say. Yes, the illustration in that newspaper article was based on what I witnessed that night. But thinking back now, I realized that I never actually saw the professor. Soon afterwards, I was visited by a young woman who sculpted a model of me from wax. Then I gave up my dream of becoming a scientist, and it was all because of that newspaper article. Wait a minute! You're claiming you didn't actually see the professor now? Of course, you'd have a screw loose if you believed a corpse would come back from the dead. Oh, I didn't seem to say that right. Of course, you'd have to have a screw loose if you believed a corpse could come back from the dead. But, so you're saying this article is... not worth the paper it's printed on? I think that would describe it perfectly, yes. If the details in the article aren't true, it nullifies your argument for why Mr. Drebber and Dr. Scythe would have been working together. So he's discrediting himself to cripple my argument.
Tell me, witness. Tell me, witness. You claim to have been in the cemetery on some auxiliary business. Can you elaborate?
That's right. Grave robbing, to be precise. As you know, Lowgate Cemetery is at the rear at Barclay Prison.
So among students at the university, it had a reputation for being haunted by the ghosts of condemned convicts.
Grave robbing, you say?
Yes, exhuming fresh corpses to sell is reasonably lucrative. Of course, I never laid a finger on any valuables buried with the dead.
So you were one of the so-called resurrectionists? A particularly unpleasant scourge on society.
Actually, my fellows and I went by another name, the Repurposers.
That is quite beyond the pale. You would invite divine retribution, sir.
Yes, well, I think I suffered retribution enough. The Daily Circus eventually unearthed my name and put it in print. It caused me a great many headaches. In the end, I had to leave the university. That was the only paper with the bad grades to identify me unambiguously, I might add.
I see. Out of interest, who drew the illustration for this article?
Yes, that was the reporter who exposed me. He sketched right in front of me as I described the scene. Obviously, as time ticked on, I bitterly regretted what I'd done. Claiming to have seen something I never truly saw. Foolish, very foolish.
Well, counsel for the defense, you may proceed to the cross-examination now.
At once, my lord.
Hold it!
By moonlighting, you mean grave robbing, do you? Surely you only need to look at the graveyard scene and my appearance to gauge the answer to that.
The lantern and spade.
But who on earth would want to buy a dead body?
Any major hospital. Any major hospital.
A hospital?
In order to better understand the human body, the study of anatomy is crucial to medical science. But there isn't a hospital in the world that has enough specimens to work with. Though obviously they can't openly express an interest in obtaining more by dubious means.
And as aspiring scientists, we young research students had no money to work with, as I'm sure you can imagine. So we made surreptitious arrangements with the hospital via our medical student acquaintances. We would never take anything of value from the graves. This was all for the furtherance of science, you see. That's what we all told ourselves every time we stole into the graveyard at night, spade in hand.
You realize body snatching is a serious crime. If you were caught, you could expect the gravest of consequences.
We students were caught between the hammer of the anvil and the anvil. We needed funds for research. Professor Hairbrain said exactly the same.
I'm quite speechless at the apparent levity with which you've revealed this abhorrent behavior.
Well, if you wanted to know why I was there at Lowgate Cemetery, that's the reason. But I never expected it to end the way it did. That I regret to this day.
Hold it!
Hold it! The strange happening at Lowgate Cemetery, which you now deny. Not entirely. I ran to fetch the police at the time. You know, I was shaking like a leaf. But they didn't believe a word of it. In fact, I was very nearly arrested myself. So you went to the papers instead? I started big with the London News, but unsurprisingly, they didn't want to know either. In the end, though, it was reporters from the Gossip Rags, the gutter press, that came to get my story. And it spread like the plague through the capital as gossip-hungry Londoners lapped up the tale.
The story was in every single paper at the time, with the exception of some broadsheets.
And yet, only 2 or 3 of them actually interviewed me personally. Typical. Most of the accounts turned out to be very interpretive ghost stories.
What about the article in the Daily Circus?
That particular journalist found me at my dormitory. I don't know how, but he discovered my name. So I recounted to him exactly what happened that night.
And from your description, he drew this illustration.
Precisely. That's how I learned the condemned man was the infamous professor. Because the reporter told me so. I had no idea myself, you see.
Newspaper reporters are wont to snoop around in matters that don't concern them. So the scene portrayed in the illustration is accurate, then?
Well, thinking back now, I realized that I never actually saw the professor at all, though.
Hold it!
Hold it! What are you talking about?
I think I explained already, didn't I? Hogate Cemetery is at the rear of Barclay Prison. So it was renowned among the students at the university for being haunted by the ghosts of condemned thieves. For some absurd reason, I was scared of the graveyard at night. As a result, only too willing to believe that nonsense about the dead coming back to life.
But you said you actually saw it.
I said what I'd seen in my mind's eye. After all, resurrection is impossible, isn't it? You'd have to be unhinged to think otherwise, says the unhinged man. Unless, of course, you have some evidence that proves I encountered the professor that night.
I don't know. Is there any material evidence that could show he really did see the professor?
This, I'm thinking. I'm thinking this is...
If we have anything at all, Mr. Naruhodo, I know I need to present it against that irritatingly backtracking statement of his.
The point is, that night was a pivotal moment in my life. Soon afterwards, I was visited by a young woman who was sculpted a model of me from wax.
Hold it!
Hold it! That young woman being Madame Tuspels, of course.
Precisely, I must say. I didn't expect to run into her again like this 10 years later.
As I have explained, I went by the name published in the article, and comme ça I found the man. Yes, the article in the Daily Circus, I think you said.
I was a poor student with barely a penny to my name at the time. And the young lady put £5 in front of me.
So you readily consented to having a waxwork of yourself made and gave permission for it to be put on display.
I did. I should sell what little I had to sell, I concluded.
Ah, oui, I remember now. I purchased something else from you that day. N'est-ce pas? N'est-ce pas? N'est-ce pas?
Did you? I can't say I remember.
What was it, madame? It's camera. Ah.
Oh yes, I made a point of taking it with me wherever I made an excursion into any cemetery.
You took a camera with you, sir. To what end?
To record the details of the bodies I disinterred. But I had no intention of ever visiting a graveyard again after that night, so I sold it.
I see.
But I still have it, monsieur. It's part of the special exhibit in my House of Horrors. I am very meticulous about such details. It is the Tuspens way. It would seem, then, that this is the very camera Mr. Drebber took with him at Lowgate Cemetery on the night in question. Yes, interesting.
And I gave up on my dream of becoming a scientist, and it was all because of that newspaper article. You found me.
This article, you mean? Published in the Daily Circus?
Yes, somebody informed the dean that it was my name that appeared in the article, and carelessly let slip that after that night after night, I was digging up graves. Hardly a model student, you might say. The university's reputation was Is it execrably or execrably? As in like executive. Execrably. The university's reputation was execrably reviled, and I was expelled as a result.
Mon Dieu, I had no idea.
And having been run out of university, you found employment in a somewhat specialist trade.
You combined your knowledge of science with the knowledge of stage magic to create various experimental machines intended to demonstrate never-before-seen technology. And you used those deceptive machines to trick the government and private investors into giving you money. Professor Albert Hairbane was just your latest victim, wasn't he?
Whatever are you talking about? I have no recollection of doing anything of the sort.
What's Drebber up to? Why would he suddenly change his tune and recant his claim? I wonder if perhaps it's because his circumstances have changed now. What circumstances? Well, if he admits to having seen the professor emerging alive from his grave 10 years ago, it will expose a secret in Dr. Scythe's past that which she desperately wants to hide. Yes, of course. If Drebber and Dr. Scythe are working together now, then if Drebber were to betray her, there would be no reason for her to continue to cooperate. In that case, there's only one way around it. I'll have to prove he really did see it. Prove he really did see the professor's corpse coming back from the dead as he originally claimed. Yes, Mr. Naruhodo, exactly.
Hold it!
Wait.
Hold it!
Wait, was it the second statement that had the... Oh, fuck. I know what. I know I'm stupid. I thought I had like a thing that was like present evidence or do nothing. But no, you literally just present evidence.
Objection!
Okay, it's fair. Wait, I'm back to full life. Something about that statement seems odd, doesn't it?
Would you care to mull over precisely what...
I'm gonna repress everything just to double check. The key thing is that we just updated the camera in evidence. And there's no excuse me, is there?
Hold it! Hold it! Hold it! Excuse me.
I want to see this little bit of dialogue, actually. Dr. Scythe. What? You were clearly just lost in thought about something. Your jet black Japanese hair. Pardon? It made me wonder if perhaps your head was filled with equally jet black Indian ink. And that the only way to know for sure would be to cut your head open and see. That's what I was thinking. Alright, mental note in black Sumi ink. Never pursue Dr. Scythe again. Mr. Naruhodo, you mustn't be intimidated. Those bits of dialogue were actually pretty fun. I'm surprised I haven't bothered to do them before.
Hold it! Hold it!
How is this going to be at all relevant? Oh wait, I was meant to. Maybe now that we know it's Jabba's camera, there's some new facts to observe.
Oh, okay. Yes, that's right. Isn't it incredible to think that this is the actual camera Mr. Jabba used that night? I certainly never imagined a piece of evidence would be on display in Madame Tuspel's.
She's very keen on everything being as true to life as possible, though, isn't she? Okay, we can't look at the... Maybe we can, actually. I've got a plan. I have a plan. There's going to be something hidden inside now that we've opened up. Maybe. No. I thought that now that it's expanded out, that there might be an extra thing invisible. Okay, as the plus minus motif. Bloodstain. Maybe it's the article? The blood? He got shot, maybe? Okay, let's get this straight. Which pieces of evidence are relevant to the Professor case? Wait. Okay, provider. Okay, for a second now. Okay, this. The purpose of this is his signature. Start at the start. Anything to do with the Professor here? Surely not. No. It's just, it is what it is. Is this from the balloon? This is nothing. Nothing to do with the Professor. Right? Nothing to do with the Professor. This had the Professor's thingy-mabob in it. Nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with it. This is so relevant. The actual camera that Mr. Drebber had with him in the cemetery 10 years ago. When the lens is extended, dark staining can be seen on the bellows. Wait. No shot. no shot do you just present this to number 5?
Objection!
No! That was so bad. I don't know why I'm struggling so much in this trial. If we only had one set of lives, I'd be out of lives right now.
Hold it!
There's no excuse me. Right?
Hold it!
I'm reading all of the presses again. Because I don't want to fuck up anymore.
Excuse me!
Mr. Drebber, is something wrong? Mr. Drebber? It would appear his only answer is that rather bewitching mechanical wiggle. He could have just said no.
Hold it! Hold it!
At first glance, number 1, number 2, number 3, that's it. Number 4. There are 4 pieces of evidence of any relevance whatsoever. Number 139. Seventeenth of June. There are only 4 pieces of it. 1, 2. I can't believe there's nothing here. No blood, no nothing. Ah.
Excuse me.
Madame two spells. Oi. Is there something about that last statement that you'd like to remark on? I'm afraid to say that I am rather whimsical at heart. Oh, really? So when something bothers me, I pour hot wax over it and first, and think about it afterwards. Perhaps a less, well, deadly approach might be worth considering.
Hold it!
Wait, what was that? Yeah, sure. How did Mr. Drebber lose his hand? Ah.
Hold it!
I've already done the fucking camera to this statement. I've already done it after the evidence was updated. So if it's this statement, which it obviously has to be, it's either 1, which no it isn't, 2, which I don't see how this proves it at all. I don't see how this proves anything at all. So this is all that's left. This is bullshit. Because this seems such a... Okay, this is true. This is true.
Yes, the illustration in that newspaper article was based on what I witnessed that night. True. That's the one. That's also true. I tried the trophy on this, but God, this is hard. I'm gonna examine this one more fucking time. I find it so odd that there's nothing weird about it. What do they actually even say about the blood? Nothing on the viewfinder. This is so weird. Okay, I don't consider this cheating. What I'm gonna do is present the camera again, just in case examining it, just in case there's something that's changed since the last time, because I don't want to be bullshit by the game. I know I've already done it, but like, if it works this time magically, then
Objection!
yeah, no. Okay, that puts my mind at ease, at least, that it's not the camera. Which I already knew because I'd presented it once, but that's nothing to do with it. This is the only piece of evidence left. I can't, like, examine it for more details.
Objection!
Objection. What the fuck? Sorry, Mr. Drebber, but I don't believe that. What the hell? Don't believe what? Your latest claim. You did see the professor on that night 10 years ago. Oh dear, we seem to be at odds. But I was there, and you were not. I know what I didn't see. The illustration with this article was drawn based upon what you told the journalist that you witnessed. A figure emerging from a tomb, wearing an iron mask. How did you know that the professor wore an iron mask? Fuck you. Yes, when the killer was tried 10 years ago. It was decided in the closed court's ruling that the man would wear the mask to hide his identity. It wasn't to be removed even during his execution and subsequent burial.
Not even the prison wardens were to see the man's face. But obviously, the provision of this mask was not public knowledge.
So, Mr. Drebber, as you've just heard, a lowly student from the University of London certainly wouldn't have known about the condemned man's mask. So unless you'd actually seen the professor that night, it's inconceivable that the artist would have included the mask in that illustration.
Order, order. Well, Mr. Drebber.
It's a vile scene, isn't it? If you look closely. Alright, I'm gonna end the stream here. Oh wait, that's not how you do it. You do it like this. Okay. That's it. End stream.